In honor of the lives of both Muhammad Ali and Kevin Kimbo Slice Ferguson, Cage Nation TV would like to honor both lives with the 10-bell salute.
Let's go!
You're listening to the Cage Nation TV Prizefight podcast. Coming to you from the Candid Cameron Studios in State College, Pennsylvania. Here's your host, Albert Cameron.
Thank you for joining me for this week's Prizefight podcast. I'm your host, Albert Cameron, and that was our salute to Muhammad Ali and Kimbo Slice, both of which have passed away this week. Whenever athletes pass away, we become sad, and it's not because we knew these folks, or if you did, you have my most sincere sympathies for the loss. We get sad because these fighters, these athletes, their acts of greatness or war of attritions have moved us. Whether we were rooting for them to win, rooting for them to lose, something about their televised performances moved us. Whether we were upset that they won, upset that they lost, happy they won, happy they lost, or maybe it just got us out of our heads for a little bit. And so it's sort of things that whenever an athlete passes away, we understand that they are too mortal. Muhammad Ali was larger than life. He was the greatest. Muhammad Ali was a man who was immortalized in film, books, documentaries, and he was the greatest. He was larger than life. I honestly thought the man was going to live forever. Kimbo Slice, another personality so large, so bold. When I first heard about Kimbo Slice, I wasn't a big fan of what he was doing. I thought it was cheapening the sport for him to try to come into MMA. But by the time it was all said and done, he had proved himself. He was legitimate. He was a mixed martial artist. I remember watching Kimbo Slice versus Seth Patrizelli for my birthday the one year. Kimbo Slice on the Ultimate Fighter 10. Like, these fights, I did not know the man personally. And again, just my heartfelt condolences go out to the Ferguson family, to the Ali family. Whether you love them or hated them or just really enjoyed watching them fight, their actions, their hard work paid off in the way that you were moved in watching them fight. And that's the important thing. We truly do mourn their losses. And hopefully this takes the time to remind us to be appreciative of our heroes while they're still alive and competing. Coming up this week on the Prizefight podcast, Brock Lesnar, former UFC heavyweight champion, is coming back for UFC 200. He has an opponent. Some people aren't happy about it. We're going to tell you why. We're also going to talk about why it's important to keep Kimbo Slice's death out of the Bellator/Eric Light lawsuit. But first, we're going to get into Ariel Helwani and the delicate relationship between the press and promoters. As you guys may have heard, Helwani and his MMAfighting.com crew were unceremoniously escorted out of UFC 199 before Michael the Count Bisping was able to defeat Luke Rockhold for the UFC middleweight championship. According to Helwani's report, he was taken backstage. Dana White was waiting for him and said, "Get out. You're banned. You're done. Go cover Bellator. We don't want you here." There's a lot of word going around that Helwani broke word that Brock Lesnar was going to be coming back, and apparently that sent Uncle Dana on fire. Of course, by now, Helwani and his crew have had their credential status reinstated. That's the benefit of the internet, of the free exchange of information, that Helwani was able to get that information out there, and fans were outraged. And that outrage turned into action. That is the benefit of the information age, that we are able to do that. Helwani also said that he has been physically assaulted by UFC personnel before, but it's all part of the job. Ariel Helwani is easily one of the best MMA journalists ever. I like to think, I really enjoy what I'm doing. I really enjoy going to my regional Pittsburgh fights. I really enjoy doing the podcast, Cage Nation TV. I enjoy doing the MMA rundown. I'm convinced that doing fight commentary is my calling in life. But Ariel Helwani, as far as journalism go, is just on a level that, as a journalist, like, he's the gold standard. And you have to think, if he's being escorted out by promoters, if he's catching all kinds of heat, he's doing the right things because he's uncovering truths that they didn't want revealed just yet. Of course, Brock Lesnar being revealed for a comeback would have been a huge promotional tool for the UFC. It would have been a huge announcement to make during UFC 199 that the former UFC heavyweight champion is coming back. But here's what I don't think a lot of people are considering. There is a very delicate balance between the MMA press and the promoters. Ariel Helwani and MMAfighting.com was at UFC 199 as a part of UFC's courtesy. UFC said, here's your entrance, here's your credentials, here is your better than the average fan access to the goings-on of the UFC. welcome. Whenever we go to Pittsburgh fights, we try very hard to be very, very respectful because the promoters allow us to be there to cover their events. Whenever a promoter offers a media outlet a press credential, it is with the understanding that they are losing money on that seat, but that the press coverage that they're going to be getting is going to be an investment to the long-term promotional health of the company. If Dana White thought that Ariel Helwani's coverage was not benefiting the UFC in a very large way, he has every right to pull that press credential. Period. I like Ariel Helwani, love the UFC, but what it comes down to it is Ariel Helwani was there on UFC courtesy. The promotion did not feel that Ariel Helwani being there was for the best of business, so they removed the problem. The perceived problem anyway. Ariel Helwani was always free to buy a ticket to UFC 199, and he could not have been removed lest he was breaking the rules of the venue, lest he was broadcasting UFC information. But Ariel Helwani and MMAfighting.com was there on promotional courtesy. I've had the extremely good fortune of having a very, very good relationship with the promoters of the events we've been to. I firmly believe that all the promoters we work with are men of integrity and men of honor, whether it be Gladiators of the Cage, whether it be Valley Fight League, Pinnacle Fighting Championships, Pinnacle Boxing Championships, Complete Devastation MMA. All of those men were men of honor. It was easy for us to report the truth because we agreed with that truth. It was good, positive truth. I have yet to go to an event to see something that I felt was unsavory. If I did, and if I reported on that, the promotion would have every right to say, I'm sorry, Albert, you're not coming back. When a promotion offers a press credential, they're doing it to try to get the best possible light because they're trying to run a business. How easy is it for us to forget that the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, is a business that is run for profit? They're putting on fights. Michael Bisping versus Luke Rockhold happened because there was money to be made. If Ariel Helwani is undercutting UFC's promotional efforts and hobbling the UFC's ability to make money, he's got to go. If I were a fight promoter and there was someone at the event, let's think about this. Let's put this in a much smaller scale. Let's say we're at the Blair County Convention Center in Altoona, Pennsylvania. We're at the Blair County Convention Center where there's 300 people. And I invited, let's say, 10 members of the press were allowed to be there. Of those 10, one was doing nothing but completely bagging on my product in an unconstructive way, essentially ruining business. I mean, it is so easy to not recoup those 300 seats. And 10 of them are going to the press. You have one guy who's completely knocking everything I'm doing, calling me everything he can possibly call me without constructive criticism. That guy has got to go. It only makes sense. Now, I'm not saying Ariel Helwani was using deconstructive criticism. Dana White and the UFC felt that him being there was a problem that was not good for business. Now, of course, Ariel Helwani was given his credentials back. MMAfighting.com was able to get their credentials back. I think cooler heads prevailed. The UFC understands that MMAfighting.com and Ariel Helwani do have a very thorough, very substantial reach to the MMA community. They understand that Ariel Helwani, and MMAfighting.com were not able to work with being there, so they come back. MMAfighting.com, they have a good reach. It benefits the UFC for them being there. All kinds of alarm. All done. So what got Ariel Helwani and the MMAfighting.com in trouble in the first place? Well, they reported that Brock Lesnar, former UFC heavyweight champion, is coming back for UFC 200. Now, Brock Lesnar is currently under contract, a very strict contract from what I'm told, with World Wrestling Entertainment, the WWE. Brock Lesnar joked that in order for him to come back to UFC 200, he had to arm wrestle Vince McMahon. But that's funny, Brock. But Brock Lesnar is going to be able to fight. Now, he drew Mark the Super Samoan Hunt as an opponent. Mark Hunt, knockout artist. So, I mean, for UFC 200, Brock Lesnar, I believe, headlined UFC 100. So it only makes sense Brock Lesnar be on UFC 200. 200 events for the world's largest mixed martial arts promotion. That is a very, very big deal. So, he draws Mark Hunt. Here's where the toilet paper turns into sandpaper for me. Brock Lesnar was granted an anti-doping testing exemption. Why? Why is Brock Lesnar so special that he gets an anti-drug testing exemption to fight for UFC 200? Doesn't that sound counterintuitive? Doesn't that sound like, hey, he might really have been up to something as of late, that if he doesn't get this exception, he's not going to be able to compete because they're going to disqualify him? Mark Hunt is absolutely jacked, and frankly, I'm right with the guy. Brock Lesnar went to the WWE after his UFC. He says he lost to diverticulitis, that Alistair Overeem did not kick him into retirement, that it was his illness. He never lost to an opponent. He lost to diverticulitis. His diverticuli were saying, hey, Brock, we got you. We're going to beat you, Brock. Brock Lesnar goes to the WWE, which in these announcements that Brock Lesnar is coming back, we've had a lot of folks locally who have done professional wrestling and mixed martial arts, and they said that professional wrestling is more taxing on the body. They say that professional wrestling is harder because in MMA you train not to get hit, and professional wrestling you are bracing to get hit. Okay, well that's fine. I mean, I've never competed in either, so I don't know. I can't offer an objective opinion one way or another. I can offer a bias that no one really wants to hear. But Brock Lesnar has an exception for the anti-doping testing. What are they going to find? And if they're going to find it in Brock Lesnar, are they going to find it in other WWE superstars? If they tested John Cena or Hulk Hogan or whoever's wrestling these days, I don't follow closely. If they tested any of those guys, what are they going to find? Are they going to find steroids? Are they going to find anabolics? Nandrolone? Brock Lesnar being granted that exception does not look well on the competition with Mark Hunt. It looks kind of one-sided. Mark Hunt has accused Brock Lesnar of being, quote, juiced to the gills. Brock Lesnar looks like he's been using performance-enhancing drugs while competing for the World Wrestling Entertainment Organization. That doesn't look well for anybody involved. It doesn't look good for the WWE, who was under a severe steroid scrutiny when they were the WWF back in their late 80s, early 90s. So, Brock Lesnar will be fighting Mark the Super Samoan Hunt at UFC 200. Mark Hunt is not happy. Would you be? Let's say you're playing a game of chess or checkers or Chinese checkers or Connect 4 or Monopoly. You had to wear a blindfold. Your opponent didn't because he was in the WWE. Would that seem fair to you? Is my comparison fair? Is Brock Lesnar using steroids or some sort of performance-enhancing drug to treat his diverticuli? I don't know. We're going to close up the Prizefight podcast this week with keeping Kimbo Slice's death out of the Bellator Eric Light lawsuit. If you remember, Eric Light is suing Bellator for being unceremoniously fired. Bellator dropped Eric Light from employment. They felt that he was no longer right for the organization. Eric Light turned around and sued Bellator and Viacom, saying that, oh, hey, Scott Coker's up to no good. He's cheating. He's cherry-picking doctors. They're faking medicals. Kimbo Slice is a man. He was an athlete. He is gone. It might be my backwoods upbringing or my mother being as careful parent as she was, but I was always taught you don't speak ill of the dead. Kimbo Slice was a man who was waiting for a heart transplant, and he passed away. That athlete is gone. That life can never be recovered. In order to honor that man's life, it would seem that it's incredibly important to keep his name out of every litigator's mouth when it comes to the Eric Light versus Bellator and Viacom lawsuit. Kimbo Slice went through the same testing that Dada 5000 did. Dada 5000, of course, ended up in the hospital with heart failure, died, I believe, and was able to be resuscitated. Kimbo Slice passed away waiting for a heart transplant that would never arrive. If there's anything funny going on with Bellator, that's what athletic commissions are there for. The athletic commissions are there to make sure that Bellator is competing in an honest way. If Kimbo Slice were to pass away because of Dada 5000 bringing a shiv to the fight, or Tito Ortiz bringing a sledgehammer, that'd be one thing. But a man passed away due to heart failure, and it would be an incredibly poor taste for the lawyers of Eric Light to use that man's death as an example during litigation. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my time for the Prizefight podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. Make sure you head over to CageNationTV.com, where this week's Friday 5, we counted down 5 of the most noteworthy boxers/mixed martial artist transplant in recent memory. I'm your host, Albert Cameron, and until next time, fights, Cameron, action. Thank you for tuning in to the Cage Nation Prizefight podcast. All rights reserved. 2015-2016 Planetary Sports. The Prizefight podcast is part of the Cage Nation Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.cagenationtv.com.